are you? Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mandy Winders, and I'm a member of this congregation. And this morning, I'm serving as your worship associate. We want to welcome everyone to UUMAN this morning on behalf of Reverend Dave Dunn, our Director of Religious Exploration, Lexi Tangney, our Music Director, Alex Peach, my fellow worship associates, and of course, our dedicated technical team that is making today's live stream possible. We would all like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Metro Atlanta North congregation, which we lovingly call UUMAN. UUMAN is a liberal faith community with a mission to nurture our spirit, strive for justice, and transform the world. No matter who you are, who you love, or where you are on your spiritual journey, all are welcome here. Do we have anybody visiting us for the first time this morning? Yes, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us where you're from?
Hi, I'm Carolyn. I'm John's very good friend from when we were children, and I'm visiting from Florida, and it's very cold.
Carolyn from Florida, thank you so much. Nice to have you here. We have a few announcements this morning. Immediately after today's service, we're going to have a vegetarian brunch. Everybody's welcome to attend. And then following the brunch at 12 o'clock noon, we're going to be having our semi-annual congregational meeting. If you're attending virtually, you can also attend that meeting online. There's a Zoom link, I believe, that was sent out earlier in the week. 11:15 is the congregational meeting. 11:15, yeah. I don't know why that's wrong here. Yeah, thank you. 11:15 is the congregational meeting. This is the final week to donate to Isabella Dunn's care package pass out. There's a donation box out in the foyer. We have a message from Annette Pate that UUMAN's painters and friends are presenting their holiday art show and sale. So please take time to view the paintings all around the sanctuary this morning. And remember that a portion of the sales go to UUMAN. There's also going to be a wine and cheese reception on Thursday, December 1st from 7 to 9. And you can meet all the artists there. There's no youth RE this week or next week. But Lexi did send out a email about pageant signups. If you have youth that would like to participate in the Christmas pageant, which will take place on Christmas Eve, please fill that out and get it back to Lexi. Or if you don't have a youth and you just want to help volunteer, that would be awesome. So let Lexi know that as well.
Good morning. This morning call to worship is by Carol Bindell, who writes, "We pause to give thanks for the voyage of life from seed to harvest, the kiss of rain and sun and growth, the gifts of the earth given into the hands of strangers, friends, and families whose efforts now bring such bounty to this table. Thanks for the soft animal body that carries each life here present, so sturdy yet so fragile. Thanks and praise for fellowship and for the lives of those whose essence lingers among us. Thanks for the complex ways in which we each continue to seek and find our place, unique, like everyone else. Lead us to the gift of regular silence until it silences us. Bring us to choose gratitude until we are truly grateful. Fill us with praise until we become a constant act of praise." And now let us light our chalice together.
This morning's chalice words are written by Nick Wilborn and entitled "To Tell Stories and Break Bread." Please join me in saying the chalice lighting. We gather here today to share and give thanks, to tell stories and break bread and be together in Holy Communion. We light our chalice this morning in the spirit of thanksgiving, with love, hope, and generosity of spirit, grateful for this blessed opportunity to be together.
We will be singing hymn number 347 in the hardback book, hardback hymnal 347. Please rise as you are willing and able to join in singing.
Once upon a time, there was a man. He had no job, no family, very little money. He lived in this one small little room, barely enough to lay down and sleep in. He survived, for the most part, on the goodwill of others. One thing that he had going for him, however, is that he lived right next door to a bakery. But not just any bakery, the best bakery in town. He enjoyed the wonderful smells coming from this bakery. He couldn't afford to buy anything, but just the smell, the aroma, the scent of the freshly baked bread just filled his spirit. Well, one day he had his head out the window, taking in this aroma, the fresh scent of the baked goods. And out came the baker. And he said, "What are you doing? I know what you're doing. You're stealing the smell of the scent of my baking bread." And the man's like, "What? Stealing the smell? That's ridiculous. How can I steal the scent, the aroma of your freshly baking bread?" Well, the baker said, "Well, we'll see." He called the police. Sure enough, the police came. "This man is stealing the aroma of my bread." And the police said, "Well, stealing is against the law," so they carted him off to jail, brought him before a judge. He awaited trial. The judge said, "Well, what have we here?" The baker says, This bum, he's stealing from me. He never buys, yet he always enjoys." "Wait," said the judge, he's stealing your bread?" "Well, not exactly, said the baker. "You don't seem to understand. He smells the bread without paying for it." "Oh, I see," said the judge. "He enjoys the scent without paying a cent." "That is correct," said the baker. So the judge turns to the man and says, "Is this true? You're being accused of the theft of smell. What do you have to say for yourself?" And the man was flustered. He said, "It is true. I love the aroma, the scent, the smell of his bread. It reminds me that I'm not hungry. I didn't know it was wrong." "Well," the judge said, "ignorance of the law is no excuse." The baker nodded and smiled. So the judge told the thief, now called a thief, to go home and come back tomorrow and bring every bit of money that you have, all of it, and bring it to court the next day at 10 o'clock. Every piece of your money, all the money you have. Well, distraught, the man goes home and he looks in the couch for his spare change and sweeps his entire little room for all the money he had, and sure enough, he brought it back the next day at 10 o'clock to the judge, to the courtroom. The judge took the bag of money that the man brought, and he said, "Quiet in the courtroom." And he said, and he looked to the baker and said, "Did you hear that?" And the baker said, "Yeah." The judge said, "Well, that sound is your payment for his theft of smell." And he gave the money back to the man. And the judge looked at the baker and said, "You have wasted all of our time with this ridiculous accusation. And I hereby declare that from this day forward, everything you bake, every dozen that you bake shall now be a baker's dozen of 13 items, and that 13th item you must donate to the food pantry, so that people who have no money to buy your food can at least enjoy it now rather than simply smell it. So be it."
Now is the time in the service where we share our joys with each other to magnify them and our sorrows to divide the weight of their pain. If you're so moved, please feel free to come forward and drop a pebble in the bowl and express a joy or sorrow that you may have. For anyone attending via the live stream, if you have a joy or sorrow you would like to share this morning, you may type it into the chat.
Good morning. My name is Bob Pop. I'm a member of this congregation. I have a pebble of concern this morning for my good friend Dirk Bender, who came down with pneumonia and is in the hospital. So thoughts, prayers for his quick recovery.
I'm Laura Keck. I have a pebble of joy for the wonderful music that we had here at UUMAN last night. Miguel Flores, Stanley Parker, and Bruce Langston played key roles in that. And I especially want to recognize Bruce for using all of his analytical skills and exhibiting tremendous grace under pressure and getting the sound check completed on time. It was a great event.
I'm Randy Blosh. I have a pebble of joy for a young man who blesses me by helping me keep my house clean every couple of weeks, Quentin Evans, and his partner Danielle on the birth of their first child, Zaya Rose Evans, who was born Friday. And a pebble of sorrow for the 3 students at UVA, for the 5 that were killed last night at Club Q in Colorado Springs just because of who they love, for the people who were shot in DeKalb County last night. When are we going to decide that the right to life is more important than the right to carry a gun?
My name is Susan Wilson, and this is a pebble of joy for my friend Beverly Jordan, who has not been able to join us for several weeks because she's been home taking care of her husband, Steve. And I'm guessing they're both very grateful that they don't live in Buffalo any longer.
Hi, I'm Judy Jewell. I have 3 pebbles of joy. My granddaughter was married in the last week. My daughter was married in the last week. And I celebrated my 80th birthday.
My name is Gus Hadorn. I grabbed several pebbles because a lot of things going on now, I guess. I got to spend a few days with my grandson. Last week, we elected a lot of good people to represent us. And great concern about the people of Ukraine that are facing a very difficult and cold winter. So for all those things.
Hi, good morning. I'm Bruce Langston, and I am dropping this pebble for my friend, Dirk Bender, who's in the hospital this morning. Hi, Dirk. Get well.
My name is Stephen Shanahan, and I'm dropping this pebble/shell as a celebration of life for Marlon Benarian.
Last and least, my name is Lawton Etheridge. I'm a member of this congregation. Two things. There's another woman that just celebrated her 80th birthday, my wife. There's two good-looking 80-year-old women, you know that. Second thing is a brief thing about Marlon Benarian. There's a group of us that he sort of took under his wing, brought us together, played golf with him on a regular basis. He set it up. I was like his go-to guy. When he didn't set it up, it's a real pain in the neck. So Marlon made this church part of his life, and we were part of his life, and we shall miss him. There'll be a service today at Soleil from, not a service, a memorial, from 1 until 3. This is for Marlon.
One important note of concern that I failed to mention, Kelly Callan has had the flu and now has pneumonia, I understand, and I think several members of her family are also struggling with the flu.
I'll drop one final pebble for any joys or sorrows that are still too tender to escape the folds of our heart. May we keep one another in our thoughts in the coming Thanksgiving week.
Today is the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. It was started in 1999 to honor the memory of Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was murdered in 1998. Today, the Transgender Day of Remembrance remembers, honors, and commemorates all transgender people lost to violence. Keeping in mind that although crimes against transgender people are often misreported, underreported, or not reported at all, according to GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, in 2021, 44 lives had been taken due to anti-transgender violence. Today, we light a candle to honor them all, those known and unknown. From the Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who've lost loved ones, those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, into a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety from violence. And now let us enter into a moment of shared silence. Amen.
In an effort to fulfill and further the vision and mission of this congregation, we ask that our members and friends share of their time, treasure, and talents. With this, we will now take the offering. You may also give using the Givelify app.
We accept this sacred offering, generously given by our beloved members and friends. May we use it wisely and judiciously in service to our mission.
Please join in singing hymn 407 in the hardbound hymnal 407. We're going to sit at the welcome table. Please rise if you're willing and able and join in singing.
All right, bring it, y'all. Will those who have brought some bread for today's bread communion please come forward? And if you are so moved, please introduce yourselves and share a brief story or recollection about what this bread means to you or what memories it brings forth. And we'll speak from this pulpit mic, or from the floor mic. Why don't you form us a little line there? Melody?
I'm Melody, your daughter, and my bread is very simple. It's milk. It's buttermilk biscuits. I don't talk in front of groups very often. My buttermilk biscuits. And my father was from the hills of southeastern Kentucky. And my grandma and grandpa, who had a small farm, never, ever modernized. And every summer when I was a kid, we would drive down from Iowa to Kentucky and visit. And my brother and sister and I just loved those visits. We drew water from the well and drank with the ladle out of the bucket. We helped lead the mules to water, because that's how Grandpa farmed the entire time. They never, ever had any of the modern conveniences that were even available then. And that's a blessing. I'm so glad we had those summers. And the one thing I'll never forget is there was always a wooden bowl with all the ingredients that you just add a little buttermilk to, and Grandma would make biscuits. And they were perfection. Mine are not, but that's the story behind them. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Melida Menafi. I'm from Iran, not Iran. And my bread is, this one is a flat, about 10 inches diameter, which we cut it. We use it for the breakfast or afternoon delight. We usually eat it with feta cheese or kebabs. It depends on when to eat it. And I brought some like herbs and feta cheese. It goes with it. Enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Kennedy Knowles, and I brought cornbread, simple vegan One is made with honey, one with agave. When my mom was pregnant with me, she read Diet for a Small Planet, which meant that for my entire childhood, we never had processed sugar, we didn't have red meat, we didn't eat out at fast food, which as a child was torturous, but now as an adult, I so deeply appreciate those habits. So this cornbread was one that we had as a staple. We didn't have a lot of money, and as I grew up too, we didn't have much, so I became gluten and dairy free, and this is gluten and dairy free. And as a starving artist in New York, it was something I could make for about $3 and would last, when gluten free was not the most accessible food for one to have. So I really lived on this simple cornbread. And I got to bake it this morning with my daughter, so it was a wonderful sort of handing down of tradition. Thank you.
Bob Pop here. I don't have a story. But over the past couple of years, every once in a while, I get this desire to have homemade bread. So I made just some sandwich bread, and it reminds me of how fortunate we are to have this bread, and how many people so many people in the world would be just so thankful if they had bread like this. So I think that's what we should be thinking about as we eat this bread today, is many people in the world would be just dying to have this bread. So anyways, that's my story.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and I saved you from having to have my childhood bread, which would have been white sliced Wonder Bread. Instead, I brought banana bread, which was the first bread that I made on my own, and it's just something I've always done whenever we've had overripe bananas, and it's a nice way to use them. And this is the very first time I actually had to buy bananas to make the bread, so enjoy.
Hi, I'm Judy Jewell. Now that I'm 80, I need notes. I'm from a family of 11 children, and my parents were very strict about table manners. So the whole thing about food, and sitting at the table was about manners. If you had your elbow on the table, you got a fork, possibly, Or they would actually play music of songs. Manners can be fun. But the most important thing was we had to learn not to be critical of food. And I brought cranberry bread because it was the thing that my mother loved making. But when I was growing up, I did not like it at all. But I couldn't say that. So I would take my piece and excuse myself and go in the bathroom and wrap it up and put it in the trash. And that's where my cranberry bread, but now, after all these years, we love it. My family loves it. And whenever I eat it, I think of my mom, and I think about how hard my parents worked for us to have good manners, which was a struggle with 11 children.
Hello, I'm Carla Capescas, and my bread today is a Brazilian tradition. It is these little rolls that are called Brazilian cheese bread, which is really a misnomer because this is not really a bread. It's like a savory cookie, you could call almost. It's made with cassava flour, so it's gluten-free, although it's not dairy-free. It's gluten-free. And the tradition behind this is that the slaves in Brazil didn't have many resources to make bread, so they used the cassava roots to mash it and then create something that looked like bread. With time, cheese and milk was added, but that's how it started. There is not a single Brazilian on the planet that has not have had this bread. It's like street food for us, and it's become so popular that you can find it at Publix and Costco now. So there you go. It looks like this when you look at the table and you try to taste it.
everyone. My name is Brianna Gallagher, and that is the first time publicly I've said my name since my wedding. I baked pumpkin bread at 3 o'clock this morning because my wife decided we were going to come today. But the memory behind it is that my beautiful wife in the back here, she has a list of food allergies almost as long as my arm. And one day I was baking banana bread, and she walked into my apartment and she goes, "It smells so good in here. What are you making? I need it." And I was like, "It's banana bread." And she goes, "No, I can't have that." And I was like, "Oh," and she was so sad. I was like, "Well, what can you have?" And she goes, "I can have pumpkin bread." I was like, "Okay." So I went out and I bought all the ingredients for pumpkin bread, having never made pumpkin bread before, and I baked pumpkin bread. So the next day when she came in from work, she walks into my apartment and goes, "Did you make pumpkin bread?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." And she was so excited about this pumpkin bread that she didn't cut it. She just ripped a slice off, sat upside down on my couch, and made happy kitty noises for a half an hour. So to honor that memory, I have made pumpkin bread that I did not cut. And I expect all of you to definitely sit upside down and make happy kitty noises as well.
I'm Doug Wilson, and I'm thinking of my grandmother Temple, who had 5 husbands and worked for the government over Mobile for as long as I knew her, excuse me, and lived in Fairhope, so she was always busy back and forth. And so her, if you'd ask her, you go to a nice meal and you ask how do you make it, it was always, well, it was so easy. I took a box of this and a can of this, another can of this, and I mixed it in with some stuff, and here it is, you know. And there was no, her idea of what's great cooking is what can you throw together. And she was also inventive because she'd say, the recipe called for a can of fruit cocktail, and I didn't have any, so I used a can of pineapple, you know, and so she's just making things go, but basically things are thrown together. And so her signature dessert was date nut bread from a can, sliced, and cream cheese smeared on it. And it always had that wonderful, it was sweet but not too sweet, and that kind of molasses kind of a feel to it and things, and that's what we came to love of her desserts. And so I tried to make date nut bread, and I made it for my children decades ago, and then yesterday when I started calling around, 7 or 8 stores, they didn't have date nut bread in a can or otherwise. And so in the idea of kind of making do, I got banana nut bread and smeared cream cheese on it. So think of her as you know, putting things together and innovating, and that's how I think of her.
Hi, I'm Roland Mathis, and kind of remembering the time when I lived in Iran in the early 70s, I brought in some Persian flatbread, but I forgot that we had a native speaker here, so I hope that I spelled it correctly before I see it is correct, okay? Because I was there a long time ago, Yadam Raft, okay? And, so anyhow, yeah, that was kind of a formative period. I went over there when I was 21 years old, so, you know, I sort of made, it was part of sort of the formation of my sense of who I was, you know, doing something like that. And of course, right now, my heart really goes out to the Iranian people, great people. I had a great time there. So that's over at the end there, okay.
I made some vegan banana bread with walnuts. It's in that rectangular bin with the tall plastic lid. I'm vegan, and I like to show people that vegan food can be just as scrumptious as non-vegan food. And I like to use organic, all-natural ingredients, so I don't just go buy a box and start making bread. I used fresh bananas, and I used fresh walnuts, and I put in some soy milk and some brown sugar and regular sugar and baking soda, and I hope you all like it. And I even got it all cut up. It may not look like it, but I can assure you it is cut up, so you don't have to reach in and pinch out a bread and start nibbling on it. And well, that's basically all I got to say. hope you like my bread.
Hi, I'm Mike Chambers. When I was a kid, my mom would make bread about once a month for our communion at the Presbyterian Church in Noonan, Georgia, and she would make sourdough bread. I don't know if you've ever made sourdough bread, but it's a pretty tricky proposition in my book. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why she picked such a difficult bread, but my bread is not sourdough bread. It's very easy, New York Times, no-knead bread, but that's what me and Donna like.
For this presentation and the stories that are really, really wonderful, really wonderful. On Thursday, like 2 people had signed up to bring bread. Or I'm sorry, by Thursday, yeah, 2 people had signed up. And I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? But wow, just it was just been great to hear all these stories. It's so wonderful. So thank you. A Blessing of the Bread by Reverend Michael Tino. Seeds scattered on fertile ground are warmed by the sun and fed by the soil. They sprout and grow, producing great fields of grain. The grain is harvested and ground into flour. The flour is mixed with yeast and water and salt and kneaded and allowed to rise and baked to make bread. The bread is broken in this sacred space of this worship service and shared in this community of love. The breaking of bread is an ancient ritual of community and memory celebrated in many different traditions in many different ways. Today, as we celebrate, as we approach the American celebration of Thanksgiving, we break bread together to celebrate the abundance of the harvest, the hard work of all who make our lives possible, and the community that gathers here to worship together. And we bless this bread as a community engaged in shared ministry within our walls and beyond. May this bread embody the loving memories through which these were made by the loving hands of members of this congregation. And may these loving memories nurture our body, mind, and spirit into the future. These loaves were baked with love, abundant love, love that multiplies all that is around it. So as you are so moved, participate in our communion by coming forward and taking a piece or 2, there should be enough to go around, of this bread. And as you eat it, bring to mind those things and people for which you are thankful at this time of year. Come receive the gift of this loving bread in this community.
And now let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'm glad you got some, Alex. You know, Alex, you can just say, Alex, you got to play for like 20 minutes and he can do it. And that's just awesome to have a music director like that who has that capability. Yes, and if you have a cloth napkin, there is a place over by the coffee. There's a bin for the soiled cloth napkins. Okay? The other napkins can go in the trash. Today's benediction is by Lakota holy man John Fire Lame Deer, who writes, "There is more to food than just having it pass through your body. There are spirits in the food, watching over it. If you're stingy, the spirit will go away thinking, that jerk is so tight, I'm out of here. But if you share your food with others, this good spirit will always stick around. Go in peace and enjoy your week, and there's more food outside at a potluck."